Last week we started Ecclesiastes with a hard truth. Life is hebel in Hebrew, meaning a vapor, a breath, like smoke from a candle. Life is fleeting and elusive and impossible to hold on to. We saw that everything we build our lives on, our achievements, our security, even the rhythms of the world itself, never quite deliver what we hope they will. And I asked you last week to notice what doesn't last. Notice what slips through your fingers. Notice what promises more than it can deliver. Did you do that? Did it hurt just a little? Why is it so hard for us to accept limitations? Limitations are difficult because they feel like an admission of failure, a loss of control, or even shame. Limits force us to confront uncomfortable realities about our mortality, our abilities, and the uncontrollable nature of life, including our inability to do it all and have it all. We just can't. And our culture trains us to resist those limitations. We're told, push harder, master yourself, reinvent yourself, maximize your potential. Social media constantly tells us that happiness, success, beauty, knowledge, even fulfillment itself just are all available to us if we just try hard. So when we encounter limits, we often experience them not just as a fact of life, but as failure. And that leaves us with a question: if life feels this way, what can we do about it? We instinctively respond the same way. We try to fill that gap. We look for something, anything that might finally satisfy us. Something that will make life feel full, stable, complete. And that's exactly where the teacher goes next. He begins an experiment. I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. And we believe this to really be Solomon speaking here, or writing. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also madness and folly. But I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. More knowledge, the more grief. He starts where you might expect Solomon to start in this experiment. He starts with wisdom. You probably remember that when Solomon became king, God came to him and offered him anything he wanted. And what he asked for was wisdom. God was pleased with that. He granted the request, and he also gave Solomon wealth and fame, the whole package. But in experiencing wisdom and knowledge, as well as madness and folly, he says, all he found was that it was a chasing after the wind. Oh, didn't go past that. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. You don't have to be as brilliant as Solomon to know that this is true. Wisdom exposes how broken the world is. For example, I actually hate watching the news. I'm asked, don't you want to be informed? And I say, I really don't. You can learn and learn about current events, but there's nothing you can do to fix them. Even the most powerful people in the world can't fix a thing. It's a chasing after the wind. Well, Carolyn, there are things to learn about that aren't as toxic as current events. What about learning about nature, or a foreign language, or how to program a computer? The problem is you can never learn it all. Not even the whole internet knows everything. They say that Socrates said, the more I know, the more I realize I know nothing. And apparently Einstein said something very similar. I read that in Our Daily Bread this week. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Well, that's a little frustrating. It's like chasing after the wind. You'll come to your limits again and will be frustrated. The more clearly that you see the world, the harder it becomes to pretend everything's fine. Okay, wisdom. The next experiment for Solomon, since wisdom was kind of a bust, is pleasure. He said, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly. My mind's still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives. Laughter, pleasure, wine, even folly, tempered with wisdom, were still meaningless. I love to laugh. You know that. I think we all want more fun in our lives, right? People get rich pursuing careers in comedy because we're willing to pay good money to be able to laugh. But is laughter meaningful? Is it something to base your life on? Not really. We can laugh at a pun, but we roll our eyes a second later. It's not meaningful. Dad jokes, not meaningful. How about cruelty? We can laugh at cruelty. Somebody slips on a banana peel, we might laugh. That's not good. The experiment continues. After pleasure, he tries wealth and accomplishment. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born into my house. I also owned more flocks and herds than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing that my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Now, that's something. Thinking about all that he did makes me realize why research projects require government funding. Wow, that was an expensive little experiment. So maybe my work, management, projects, properties, getting things done, maybe this is the way to go. Could this be the way to find true happiness? Discipline, goals, finances, building and growing things. Let's welcome achievement and bring it all together. And Solomon, of course, did build great things. His greatest accomplishment was building the temple of God. Wow. But even that was destroyed. Now, it was rebuilt and restored, but then it was destroyed again and no longer exists. That's an incredible achievement, but still, it's gone. He tried all the rest of the big three that are meant to bring happiness. Money, he amassed all that silver and gold. Sex, he had a full harem, not to mention, I guess it was 300 wives. And power, greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem. Did any of this work? What he says next is, yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Even if you get everything you want, it's still not enough. Although we don't have Solomon's advantages, we know he's right. Think about, for example, the best meal you've ever had. Maybe it was in a special restaurant. or a holiday meal with family. Maybe it was something that you cooked yourself. You looked forward to making it, and you sit down and everything's perfect. You've got the right friends there with you or family. The flavors are all exactly right. The conversation is warm. For a moment, everything feels full. Then it's over. The plates are cleared, and the table empties. And maybe, if you're honest, a couple of hours later, you're wondering what you're going to eat next. Not because the meal wasn't good. The meal was good. It just didn't last. It couldn't. And that's what the teacher is discovering here. He's saying, not saying that pleasure is bad. He's saying that even the best pleasures cannot carry the weight of life. So what more could the teacher experiment with? It looks like he's turning back to wisdom, but he's not. I turn my thoughts to consider wisdom and also madness and folly. What more can the king's successor do than what has already been done? I saw that wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise have eyes in their heads while the fool walks in the darkness. But I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both. Then I said to myself, the fate of the fool will overtake me also, so what then do I gain by being wise? I said to myself, this too is meaningless, for the wise, like the fool, will not be long remembered. The days have already come when both have been forgotten. Like the fool, the wise too must die. Well, this is finally getting to the crux. Here's the thing the teacher has really been struggling with all along, and that's death. That's why nothing he achieves has meaning. So I hated life, he says, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish? Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil, into which I have poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless, so my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labor under the sun. For a person may labor with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then they must leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. This too is meaningless. Well, we've hit bottom here. I hope you're relieved to hear that. The way we live our lives is only a distraction from the truth that we will all die. Nothing we have done will really matter, at least not for long. We leave our things to our children and grandchildren, if we have them, and many of those things will have lost their meaning the instant we die. Those old photos of relatives and vacations that no one else remembers fit only for the dumpster. How about our beautiful house in Mexico that none of our relatives want? They'll sell it ASAP, won't they? Our souvenirs and the wonderful stories that we have attached to them, totally meaningless at this point. We really don't want to think about these things. But the truth is, if death doesn't have an impact on the way we live, we're just pretending that we will never die. I'm going to say that again. If death does not have an impact on the way we live now, we are pretending that we will never die. And the teacher has come to the end of his pretending. He turns the corner and comes to a conclusion. Maybe not the conclusion, but a conclusion. A person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat or find enjoyment? To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I'm sad that he had to end it with that. But when we really truly accept that we are going to die, then we no longer have to expect too much from all the good things we do have. We learn to pursue good things for what they are in themselves, rather than what we need to make us happy. Death shows us our limits. Those limits that we start out hating because we are not God. We are his creatures. Acknowledging our limits helps us to see God's good gifts right in front of us. They're there all the time, every day, eating and drinking, finding satisfaction in our toil. Nothing better. Instead of trying to use these gifts from God, and this is the first time I think that the teacher has mentioned God in this book, instead of trying to use these gifts of God to make some sort of impact on the world, or even on our own lives, we take the time to live inside the gifts themselves and to see God's hand in them. Ordinarily, we eat and drink so that we can keep going on with our work, right? And our lives. Ordinarily, we work not just to earn a living, but to find purpose and even make a reputation for ourselves and to achieve success, a chasing after the wind. But what if the pleasure of food is a daily joy that we ungratefully overlook? What if our work was never intended to make us successful, but simply to make us faithful and generous? Death shows us that this is how we are meant to live. Death shows us that we were never meant to carry the weight of being God. We were never meant to control everything, never meant to secure ourselves forever, never meant to squeeze ultimate meaning out of pleasure, success, wisdom, or possessions. We are creatures. And that may sound like bad news, but until we realize how exhausting it's been trying to be God. Ecclesiastes is teaching us to loosen our grip, to stop demanding that temporary things give us eternal satisfaction, to stop asking pleasure to save us, or success to justify us, or knowledge to make us secure. Once we stop demanding too much from life, we can finally begin to enjoy it. A meal becomes a gift instead of a substitute for happiness. Friendship and marriage become a joy instead of a guarantee against loneliness. Work becomes satisfying instead of becoming our identity. The teacher has discovered something surprising. Accepting our limits does not destroy joy. Hey, it makes joy possible. Because when we finally stop trying to turn God's gift into God, we can finally receive them with gratitude. And perhaps that's why Ecclesiastes sounds so honest. Because the teacher is finally done pretending he can control life, done pretending that pleasure can satisfy, done pretending success can defeat death. Strangely enough, that's where peace begins. What an amazing blessing. What incredibly good news. Amen.
Amen.